Hey guys, I'm Jay and today we're gonna make BD-1 from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. If you're new here, I make sculptures out of clay, so subscribe to the channel to don't miss any of my next videos, and let's get started. I made a sketch with some details and also a paper model of BD-1 to make sure what size I want him to be. So let's take some white clay and move to the step 1. I used my pasta maker to roll out a sheet of clay that I will need to create parts of legs, so the layer that we made will be just perfect for this purpose. I also made this paper template for the leg for the precise cutting. With a scalpel I shaped the edges. It will still be a little rough though, but we can improve it with a smoothing tool and after baking with sandpaper. Then I use my needle tool to give it proper texture. The inside part of the leg has a black color, but I will make all the details just on white clay and then paint it. I'm not using any wire for this figure because the parts are tiny and it's just easier to make them. And later I will glue them all together and it will hold it just fine. So we added a few modules and then we need wires to connect them. I roll out the wire with my acrylic plate. Each leg has 2 wires to translate all of those robotic signals, I guess. So, not to smash everything we've done, I put the leg on the sponge because it's soft. And let's continue working on the outside part. I use some liquid clay for a better connection, then add the red stripe of clay and the other details. And finally, let's paint it black. We had the rest of the layer we prepared before, and also a similar paper template for the upper leg. On one side it's thinner, so we need to cut it appropriately, and also use the same technique as before to make rounded edges. The inside part is quite easy, it just has the black mechanism with 4 screws around it. I have no idea what it is, but it looks nice on the robot. Let's move it on the sponge to work on the outside part. I make this circle using a pen cap to make an impression and then cut it out. It will be placed at the joint between the upper and lower leg. It has similar red stripe with a red box on it and also a little bit more of robotic details. And let's put this tiny grey square of clay that will be connected to the middle wire. Step 3. Relaxation. Just kidding, let's go to the next step. For the main body, I cut a piece of clay right out of the package, because it's very firm, it will be easier to work with for this creation. Let's form it correctly, it has a special place for legs, I'm trying to make it symmetrical on both sides, it wasn't so easy though. Also, with the scalpel I shaped the sides more rounded, just like this. The front part is a little bit angled, so I'm trying to form it correctly. I'm making a little space inside to put a tiny layer of black clay later. I guess with softened clay it will be so much harder to do. So yeah, let's make a black layer and then put it inside and carve some details on it. It also helps to push it down. There is some liquid clay inside, so after baking it will be stuck there forever. It has 2 squares and a line on the bottom that really look like a face. The actual BD-1 has it, I don't know why, but it's quite interesting. On the top there is a red square, let's push it down with my silicone tool and my finger tool. On the back side there is a similar but a slightly longer panel, so let's form these lines with my needle tool and also similar circles and squares as in front. white clay you see all the dust much more clearly than on the colors, even if you washed your hands, so I used some oil to clean it. Then let's put it into the oven. After the oven I'm using sandpaper to polish the angles a little bit more. On top he has a little indentation for the neck, let's use a scalpel to make it. I actually forgot to make it, so let's see if I can do it on the baked clay. The clay is actually very firm, so I need to do it piece by piece to make a nice form without screwing everything up. If you ever try to do it with a scalpel, be very careful. And my favorite part is the head. Just as for the body, we got a block of clay, but it's bigger. BD-1 has a big head. All the angles are rounded, so my scalpel helps me to do it. Let's cut a grey panel that I will put on the head a little bit later. The front part above the eyes has a little crevice that I formed with my scalpel. I measured the edges of it just to be a little more precise. So we put the grey panel on the head now, and it will help us to form a square indentation on the backside. I thought how it would be better to make it, and I figured out that I have a tiny piece of my broken blade, so it helped a lot. After all the cuts, we simply take it out. Sometimes you can make new tools from old tools by breaking them. Let's remove some leftover clay with a scalpel and then draw a little square on it, and also on the grey panel. I think it's a cap that opens up, but who knows, robots are very mysterious. Then place a black layer of clay and make lines in it with the dull side of the blade. Also put a tiny blue screen and 3 brown screws. There is another black panel on the right side with 2 little red lights, and also there are many different squares on it that I draw with my needle tool. Let's attach the wires now. I guess they are vitally important, so don't ever cut them! The other side is simpler, I just draw some lines and add the grey panel. As always, I use liquid clay, so it will be stuck there after baking. On the back side he has a display, I guess, that shows some pixels. It changes color from time to time, sometimes it can be blue, for example. I chose a green color for it. For robots there's so many options, you know. Then I make lines from both sides, so there will be tiny squares that will represent pixels. Then I add a black square of clay below and make 3 lines with my needle tool, similar to what I did for the main body. Then with my marker and a pencil I draw some of the pixels. Let's make a visor for him now. I'm trying to place it as accurately as I can. Also I prepared paper eyes for him to have a better idea of the position of the visor, because I will bake it first. Then I cut pieces that we don't need and get rid of some dust. Now we make the actual eyes. The technique is similar to what I showed you before, we just cut a shape with a paper template. Let's make the red eye first and add a little bit of grey and then black over it. In the middle I put a tiny piece of blue clay as a pupil and also a tinier piece of white to make the eye come alive. The right eye is a little bit different, it's mostly grey and it protrudes out. I think he's scanning objects with his eye in the game. Let's attach it and use some liquid clay to fill all gaps between the eye and the visor. Now let's paint some parts of the head with a red marker. I drew it before with a pencil to make it easier. Also on the visor there's a red stripe and a little grey triangle that I draw with a pencil. And it's time to attach the ears. I fill them with a black clay in the middle and also make some texture in it. To make antennas for him, I will use aluminum wire that I will cover with black acrylic paint. Let's make a little hole with a needle tool, so that when we pull the wire, the ear won't be smashed. And also let's add a grey circle for connection for the neck. The feet of BD-1 are separated to 3 different parts that we will glue together. So the white part will be for the front connection and the black one for the back part. And also let's make his neck. We have all the parts and now we can glue them all together. I want legs to have different position and it actually wasn't so easy to do because you need to glue a lot of parts and you want them to look nice. After I glued legs so that they look symmetrical, I can attach his feet. It's the best to do when you put the figure on the table and find the best angle. Now let's prepare the neck. The angle is really important because it will be responsible for position of the head. His eyes actually remind me a lot about Wall-E. Let me know if you want me to make him. I think BD-1 deserves to have a nice base to stand on, so my pasta maker provided a high quality layer of clay specially for this purpose. There is one little thing left for us to do. It is to polish his eyes so they will shine. And I guess we did it! BD-1 from Star Wars! Yay! Check my previous creations, also subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and I see you guys in the next videos.